Hello, for those who just joined, once again, welcome. Just update. We're just waiting for a few more persons to join, so we'll start. So let me give a fixed time because the last time I didn't give any fixed time. So we'll start 11:10. That's in 5 minutes time. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody, once again for the third time. And good morning, Basiru. You're the first to join today. Welcome. If you're just joining us for the first time, this is the ICIR Weekend Journalism Masterclass, and the objective of this masterclass is to help improve help improve the practice of the journalism practice in Nigeria. And to do that, we believe that we need to boost the capacity of those who are in the practice. And over time, we've been able to get different experts to come and speak on different issues. And for, for a number of the issues or topics we've actually treated are generally topics that that we've noticed gaps, and of course, we usually share out a survey form. So based on that, and this is probably the last or the second to the last class for this year. And once again, thank you for joining us. And the class takes place twice every month. That's the first Saturday and the third Saturday of the month. And so far, we've been able to get facilitators to host to facilitate the class, and we actually do not pay them. So they do this out of their free will and as part of their CSR, and because it's something they are really interested in. So they really are interested in developing the capacity of journalists and journalism practice. So I'm using this medium to thank all our previous facilitators and of course the one for today. You can follow the ICIR on social media at the ICIR to keep to stay updated on information regarding the Weekend Journalism Masterclass. For sorry, I'm having a cough. For today, the topic we're dealing with is dealing with sexual harassment, and our guest for today is not someone that is new to those of us who are in the media industry. She's actually somebody that's she's very well known, Miss Buki Shunibare. She's the executive director of Invictus Africa. And I have a profile, I'm going to read it. And Ms. Buki Shunibare is executive director of Invictus Africa. Invictus Africa is a civic organization that promotes human rights and gender equality through data-driven advocacy, technological solutions, and capacity development. And Ms. Buki advocates for gender-based violence prevention and response, women's political representation, women's health, women's economic empowerment, and gets access to free and safe quality education. She holds a first class in law from Bayes University and a first class bachelor's degree in business administration from SMC University in Switzerland. She also holds an executive master's degree in managing peace and security in Africa from Addis Ababa University, a master's of law degree in international law and development from University of Nottingham, and also an MSc in international human rights law from University of Oxford. So even if you've not heard of Miss Buki before, with this, you already know that this class is going to be very, very educative. It's going to be very enlightening because all these degrees, all these qualifications, you get to know that she's well suited for this class. She is also a Ford Global Fellow, an Oxford Commonwealth Scholar, a Developing Solutions Scholar, a Mandela Washington Fellow, and a Malala Fund Education Champion. So without wasting too much time, Ms. Buki, please, if you can take over. And once again, I will apologize for starting late. We're trying to wait for other people to join. Good morning, ma'am, and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I had actually planned to put on my video, but I can't, and that's because I'm not feeling too well, and I didn't want to cancel my commitment to this session today. But so please bear with me. I think it's just stress. Okay,
that's fine.
so yes, good morning, everyone, once again, and thank you so much for the invitation, ICIR. I don't take this for granted. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with amazing people. I will share my slide at the end of the class, so please bear with me on that as well. I got disrupted because of my health as well.
Hello, ma'am. We cannot hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Thank you.
We can't hear you again. You're muted.
Oh, wow. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry about that. So I wanted to ask us, your definition need not be perfect. It need not follow the usual scientific definition of anything. Just let me know your thoughts about what sexual harassment is. But when you are answering that, think of, whether you have experienced it before, and this has got nothing to do with gender. So whether you have experienced sexual harassment before or not, but let me hear your thoughts about what you think sexual harassment is. Anyone?
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Beniga Olabiko. Am I permitted to speak?
Yes, sir, you are.
Okay, I think sexual harassment, at times we refer to it as maybe, let's say, a man is disturbing a lady and is getting to the point of I don't want, I don't want, and leads to either rape or whatsoever, or too much pursuit of a male to female. But these days we have the other side now that a female are the one even looking out, harassing the male counterparts.
Thank you so much. Harassing the male counterpart. It could also be the other way around. Thank you so much. Any other person?
Yes, my name is Bankole Abe. I work for the ICIR. Good
Okay.
morning, Ms.
Good
Buki.
morning, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, to me, sexual harassment it's just like sexual harassment means unwelcome gesture or attitude towards the opposite gender.
Absolutely. I like the use of the word unwanted. It could be a gesture, it could be attitude, it could be an actual action itself. Thank you so much. Any other person?
Hello, my name is Ayotunde. I think sexual harassment is like the last speaker said, is any form of unsolicited, unwelcome, unwanted advances. It can be remarks, it can be words, it can be innuendos, it can be actions from one person to another.
Yep.
I think most likely from opposite sex, but right now I think it can even be from one gender to the other gender anyway, in the world that we live in today.
Absolutely. I think what you meant by that last one is it can be even from the same gender.
Yes, from a lady to another lady, from a man to another man. Like someone
Fantastic.
that is queer, like making remarks to another person that is straight, it's harassment.
I like that dimension. Thank you so much. Any other person? So,
hello?
Yes, please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I just wanted to add for that, I think it could also be something maybe unintentional. Like when you mentioned the same sex, I think someone mentioned, I think even more a superior from the same gender is commenting on your physique or even in the hypocrisy, you know, I think it's still it makes you uncomfortable, even if it wasn't meant to be sexual, so to speak.
Thank you.
And so if I may add, it becomes an harassment when it becomes repeated. If you do it once and the person says no or don't do it again, so if it becomes repeated, the first time might be a mistake, the first time might be unintentional, the first time you might read the signs wrong, but when the person draws the line, set boundaries, and it becomes repeated, that's when it becomes an harassment. The first instance is really not an harassment in that sense. Anyway.
Okay, I wonder where that dimension comes from. So are you saying that a first-time sexual harasser, for lack of a better word, cannot commit sexual harassment, even if the person is asked to stop?
No, if it's a remark, like if it's
let me paint an example. Let me paint an example. So let's say there is a male here and the person is maybe wearing a tight shirt or something, and I place my hand on the person's chest or something, touching the person in an unwanted way, even though it's the first time. Are you saying that does not count for sexual harassment?
The first time does not count. And the person says no. No, it's a sexual. It's not an harassment. It's a sexual unwelcome sexual advance. But at that, it's not an harassment.
Sorry.
Because the other person has not said no, don't do it. So when you are put in your place and you
wait.
That's when
I think Mimika is speaking. Let her finish. Yes, please go ahead. Complete your thought.
Yeah. No, that first time that you place your hand on his chest or on whatever, that first instant, that first gesture is not harassment yet. It's unwelcome, but you can only know it's unwelcome when the person says no. When you do that and the person doesn't say anything, it can go further or go anywhere. It's unwelcome when the person says no. That is when you know that it's unwelcome. So when the person says no, you know that it's unwelcome. When you now repeat it becomes an harassment.
Let me still stay on you before other people chip in. What if the person lacks the capacity to say no?
Capacity, in terms of being able to speak or being able to move the person's body. When the person moves away, that's enough.
So let me give a context to capacity. So in law, capacity could be a child, could be somebody that is mentally derailed, it could be somebody that is drunk. So long as the person is in a state where they are unable to use their mental faculty to make decisions that they would have otherwise made if they were okay or mentally stable. So the condition you have given as to what could constitute harassment is if the person says no. So I'm asking again, what if the person lacks the capacity to be able to say no?
Well, I think the person, whoever proceeds to, it's just a touch. If the person doesn't have my thinking and my thoughts, and if the person doesn't say no or lacks capacity to say no, and the harasser continues and it evolves into another thing, the person would have committed another offense, which would not be labeled harassment at that time, defilement, rape, or whatever it is. But my focus is just on the harassment part. Is that harassment has to be continuous, I think. Like repeated, rather, not continuous, like repeated.
Okay, let me hear other people. Please go ahead. I think Bemika was trying to talk the other time.
Yes, the first time could be because if a lady should place hand on a male chest and going ahead with other intention, if the guy is not a strong fellow that can reject, or the environment where they meet themselves is not a place where the male counterpart can reject, it could go on to another thing, except maybe in a public where maybe the man feels that, no, this should not go on in the public, he might reject that. But I bet you they might still go back and find themselves. I want to give example like There was one story I saw on the Twitter that a guy was narrating how he was able to harass a young lady. Both of them are young guys. About a friend recorded him, never knew. I want to believe that the guy that was narrating experience never knew that the video recording of his friend could lead him to trouble. I'm aware that he has been declared wanted and the system is looking for him in Lagos. But first time could lead to anything. So we should not say first time is not. Now we are talking about the scenario of a female to a male. What if it is a male to a female first time and he lay hand on his breast? What will happen?
Thank you. Bankole Abi, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much. I want to disagree slightly with it. First and foremost, let's look at the definition of harassment. That's when we can get the true context of what we are talking about. Harassment can be defined as illegal behavior towards a person that causes mental or emotional suffering. So it doesn't have to be whether first time, whether repeatedly, whether continuously. Once there's an illegal behavior towards a person, unwanted, unsolicited, then definitely it is an harassment. It doesn't matter how many times. So that's my submission. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other person? Any other person? Okay, so so when proving the offense of sexual harassment in court, and permit me to just come from the legal angle, there is the element of repeated, the fact that it was repeated. There's that element. But that element does not mean that you do not count when it happened just for the first time. And I understand what you're saying in terms of why it has to be repeated for it to be called harassment. When you say somebody is harassing you, just think of it as somebody that keeps doing something that you don't like, but it could also happen for the first time as well. Where the law, where the court will then try to ascertain whether what has happened is sexual harassment or other forms of sexual abuse, sexual assault, or any other thing. The court will then look at the element of intentionality. Did this person do it intentionally? And so in that case, we can then say, okay, it happened for the first time and we can count it as sexual harassment. For the first time could be a whole day, and then the person is doing it repeatedly for that day. So you are not wrong to impute the element of repetitiveness, of sexual harassment. However, it doesn't invalidate the fact that if it happens for the first time, it also counts for sexual harassment. The other element of sexual harassment, which I also talked about earlier, is that of intentionality. This person intended to conduct or to carry out that sexual act. If I touch somebody on his chest, or if a man, touch somebody on a buttocks or something, all of those things could be done intentionally. So when you are trying to look at whether this is a crime, for instance, you want to look at the fact that the action has been committed, which in law we call actus reus, or whether there is an intention for that person to sexually harass the person, which in law we call mens rea. And so we've talked about the fact that, and I like some of the words that you all used. I like the use of unsolicited, the use of unwelcome, the use of unwanted. So long as it is unsolicited, it is unwelcomed, it is unwanted behavior of a sexual nature, which make you feel offended, uncomfortable, intimidated, or humiliated, then sexual harassment can be said to have occurred. And so we must look at all of those elements when we are considering whether sexual harassment has occurred. Those elements can function individually or they can function collectively in order for you to say, okay, this is what has happened to this person. Now, sexual harassment usually takes different forms. So again, I'm going to throw this back to you all. What forms of sexual harassment do you know of? Some of you have already mentioned it. You've alluded to, the different ways it could play out, but let's gather it together. What are the different ways sexual harassment can occur?
I think it can be verbal or non-verbal. It can be looks, it can be words, it can be touch,
Yes.
gesture.
Yeah.
Verbal or non-verbal, any form of means of communication.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's start with verbal. Let's start with verbal. So what are the different
Hello, Miss Buki. We can't hear you. Hello, ma'am. You're muted. Okay, you're open. Now we can hear you.
It keeps knocking me out and signing
Okay.
me back in again. So I apologize.
Okay.
So yes, so we're talking about the fact that, and thanks, I think it was Ayotunde that gave that example, the fact that it could happen verbally or non-verbally. So I was asking, the different ways that it can happen verbally. Just practical examples. What do we think? The different ways. Give examples of a verbal form of sexual harassment. Anyone?
When you catcall, when guys catcall a lady person.
When a guy what?
Catcalls, like a lady's person, and you catcall the person, like you call a sexual worker.
Okay.
And lewd jokes as well.
Yep. Any
And
other?
I think a welcome compliment.
Yes. Give example of those. There is a thin line between those unwelcome compliment, which is where which is where the element of intentionality will come in. But give an example and let's dissect it.
Okay, a welcome compliment, you look good. Normally that's like vague and all of that, but when you particularly mention the particularly part of the body you think looks good, that's sort of weird.
Okay, what do we all think? Can you all hear me? So yes, I agree with you. Yes. So Ibukun, are you trying to say something?
Well, one, I think the guy passed the boundaries of complimenting the lady to say he likes the way the lady's breasts are standing or something like that. And he took it normally as though he's just trying to describe how her breasts were as opposed to other ladies that he has seen or met and that he liked that about her. Yeah.
Absolutely. That is far off. And those that particularly can amount to sexual harassment. It could just even be using objects or other non-bodily parts to describe the body part of someone. So like saying to someone, I like your oranges, saying to a woman, I like your oranges. Those kind of comments, they make you quite uncomfortable. They make you quite humiliated and somewhat feel offended. So we want to be able to establish the fact that in the comments that are being made verbally, even when you just want to comment on the way somebody looks, you want to do it in such a way that does not fail the test of non-harassment. And that means you are not saying something that makes the person feel uncomfortable. This brings in the issue of subjectiveness. How do you, for instance, understand, what somebody feels comfortable with or what somebody does not feel comfortable with? Because what one person may feel comfortable with, another person may not feel comfortable with. So it's with that. And so you want to be able to find a way in between, so that if we swing it left and right, we can establish that you do not intend to verbally, sexually harass this person. And like Ayotunde also said, there is also the physical, the non-verbal one. And those non-verbal ones can take different forms. So it could be direct physical contact of a sexual nature, like somebody touching you in a way that you are not comfortable with. On my slide, the picture on the front of my slide is an image of a man who is talking to a female in a workplace, but places his hand on her leg. I was just talking of as if nothing is happening, but on the girl's face, there's that the fact it shows that she's not comfortable with what is going on. So you also want to look at that in terms of both the physical and the non-physical. So the non-physical or the verbal, the non-physical could be verbal, and it could also be non-verbal, gestures, attitudes, looks. So imagine you're in a meeting and somebody winks at you, or somebody looks at you so lustfully, that's sexual harassment, even though it's unspoken and it is not physical, because by physical, you are now getting to the point of a touch. But there are other non-physical forms, that are attitude or gestures that make you feel completely uncomfortable with the way this person is looking at you. I went to buy a phone somewhere, and I could see how the guy was looking at my buttocks, and he was trying to, so each time I catch his eyes, he would take his eyes away. So at some point when he did that so intently and he had lost himself, I went to meet him and I said, I'm not comfortable with the way he's looking at me. And the next question he would ask was, I just want to ask, is it real? So how do you begin to deal with that in terms of, to be honest, even though I work in this space, I was completely lost as to how best to answer him, but I just want that it's making me feel very uncomfortable. So you have those ones as well. So it could be a look, it could be a gesture, it could just be, just somebody doing something, even though it is not voiced. And the physical one, like I said, could be direct physical contact of a sexual nature, touching you, and touching you sexually need not be in your sexual organs. It need not be, it could just be anything. It could just be a touch in your hand. It could just be anything, so long as you are not comfortable with it. And how do you express the fact that you are not comfortable with it? You pull your hand off or something. That's for people who have capacity. But for people who don't have capacity, that is why when you bring such cases to court, for those who don't have capacity, the court or the judge sort of like reduces the burden of proof or the standard of proof, I beg to say, on the plaintiff, to be able to, because in law you say he that asserts must prove. So if you say that I'm the one that committed this offense, then you must prove it. But when it is for people who don't have capacity, or who at the time that offense happened lacked capacity, then the court reduces that standard, to accommodate that element of incapacitation. So let me know if at any point you have any question. There's also another type of sexual harassment that happens at work. Fortunate, did you unmute to talk? Yes, Bankole Abbey, please go ahead.
Yes, I just want to call your attention to the fact to talk about looking. I know it's a common thing that men generally admire ladies with. I don't want to go into details. Does that constitute as a sexual offense? I'm a bit confused there. Maybe you are passing through and there's a lady passing by your side with, maybe I decide to look back. Most people I see, they look back, they stare at such ladies. So does that constitute sexual offense or sexual harassment?
So you can look at someone admirably. You admire maybe the person or the person's look or something. It crosses the line when the look becomes so intense or it becomes so uncomfortable for the person. Now, while you may not be able to ascertain, maybe through facial expression, that this person is not comfortable with something that you have said or done, or that you have done in terms of trying to admire the person. Your own is to make sure that you don't, for lack of a better word, overdo it. So somebody could just pass by and then you just look at the person and just take your eyes away immediately. Things are changing very fast. Even though I'm a human rights law graduate, even for us within the human rights space, we don't know where to put the check any longer because everything now counts. People can now identify as anything. So it's then the burden then rests on us to make sure that we don't cross the line. I don't know. So there's no hard and fast rule to say, yes, this is how it is. Everything will always be judged on the basis of the fact that is presented. So if it is just somebody that looks beautiful, dresses beautifully, and the person passes, and then you look at the person and don't let it be too long. I don't know if that answers your question or if anyone has any thought on that.
Oh, sorry. I'm just trying to comprehend. I'm Okoyemi Kende, the editor of the Fact Check Hub and host of the Masterclass. I just need to clarify, how long does it look? Too much or too less? Personally, I admire beauty when I see one. And sometimes 30 seconds and 2 minutes to look. Even though I may not talk, I may not make any gesture, but when I see good beauty, I take a look to say, now God finish this work. But so how long does it take for a look to become harassment, or for me to, wake up from my daydreaming and stop staring?
Thank you so much, Mokwemi. There's no rule book that says once you look more than 30 seconds, you have now sexually harassed the person. So there's that huge element of subjectiveness here where you're the one just making sure that there is a check, in view of today's realities and in view of, not knowing what somebody can pass off or can consider to be sexual harassment. You know, sometimes, and it's not just men that admire beautiful women. We women also admire good-looking men. And sometimes you get so lost or so carried away in the process of doing that, that you don't even know that you have started offending the person for which you genuinely intended to just really admire. And sometimes it's not even based on beauty. Just imagine you are in your element. You guys are journalists, you write. Somebody can be commenting, for instance, this is not physical. Somebody can be commenting on your work, and the person is now taking it too far, you know. What in Yoruba we say, Sarah Koja Mosholashe, you know. For non-Yoruba speaking people, forgive me, that means the person has started passing his or her boundaries. So I think it is just for us to be able to check, you know, the chance or the opportunity to be able to admire is one of the things that makes the world a beautiful place. We must not then become so conscious that all of us become robots that must not turn left or right simply because you are afraid of what will be counted as sexual abuse or not. So I think it's just being able to find that balance. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. One more thing. Does harassment suffice? Can harassment suffice in relationship, even with your partner, your spouse?
Absolutely.
That's in that context of lucre. Because why I'm asking, so that I can know. I'm the kind of person that I like tapping my wife often, not just once in a while. I may just look at her and say, see this one, and just tap her. I just run away. Does that also count as harassment?
Before I provide my thoughts, let me throw it open. What do we think? Other people, what do we think about the question you just asked, which is a very good question, by the way. What do we think?
Yes. So, I think sorry. I think most men like tapping their wives. I don't know. There are wives that tap their husband too. Because my wife will just look at me sometimes and say, and just tap me and say, see my fine husband. Something like that. But I want to say, to me, I don't think there's anything wrong with it, except the partner says stop it. I believe personally that at any point where the other person says stop it or I don't want it, I always tell my children, once a person says don't do it or stop it, then at that point, stop it. There is wrong notion that I've always believed in, that when a lady says stop it, then she likes it. That's generally common among males, that once you are trying to do something with a lady and she says stop it, that is a lie. She's enjoying it or she likes it. I think that is something we need to clear. Before I go, I will just chip in something, please, if you don't mind. That's for people like us that stay in Lagos and we go to places like Yaba, Alaba International, Alaba Suru, you see those traders constantly, touching those ladies that pass through the market or come from one side or the other. You see them dragging them to their shop or screaming all kind of thing. Hey, what is this? You buy them? All those kind of verbal things. I want to quickly ask, in addition to the other question, that's in that kind of situation, are you, as somebody who's an advocate of against gender-based violence, what do you do in the midst of such human beings that they are more than you? It's like a mob. How can you do to remedy the situation for such ladies? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So basically, we just simply advocate for it. There was a campaign a few years ago, like maybe 2-3 years ago, the market march. Did anyone follow that campaign? It was called Market March. I remember their code color was yellow. Did anyone follow that campaign?
A little. I followed it a little.
Yes, yes. And this was what you just said was what they were campaigning against, to say that people should not, sexually molest people. So for instance, I hate going to market, especially in Lagos, for this purpose, because it is harassment. And that is an example of how harassment can happen immediately. Even though you are not saying, a lot of people will experience that, will just be walking fast, and just leave that place. So I know that there was a market march to that effect, where this group of young women came together and they were going to these markets to go and sensitize them, talk about, how what they do constitutes sexual harassment. A lot of them believed that it was just their way of marketing or something, but it doesn't change the fact that it is sexual harassment. So I am currently not doing anything to that effect. And a lot of times, I think we tend to raise our voices on things that affect us sometimes. So because first, I don't live in Lagos. Second, it's even if I live in Lagos, I don't go to those markets because it has happened to me many times before. So I just stopped going to those places. But I know there are people who have worked on it before. Yes. So to the question that Okwemi asked, in terms of when it comes to your wife, and I like the answer that somebody gave, that if she says, I don't like Ijo, it becomes a different thing when it is a marital relationship. Once she expresses that she doesn't like it, perhaps as a joke or something, then you want to be careful about that. Otherwise it then becomes harassment. So so that's what I think in terms of that. It's easier to prove when it is spousal rape. You bring an element of the fact that it was non-consensual, and all of those elements that we use to prove in court. But when it is sexual harassment between couples, it then becomes the threshold then becomes a bit higher, because what you may have been playing with her before with the same joke, but one day you did that same play and she's not comfortable with it. So yes, I think that in this kind of scenario, if she just expresses the fact that she doesn't like it, then you know that you don't do it or you don't repeat it. And we women, because we don't know what we want, I say that as a joke, don't quote me. That same thing that you did that you may have complained about today, the next day, you may not do the same thing, and she's asking, why are you not doing that? And you're like, but I did it yesterday. You said that you were not comfortable with it. So it's for us to just be able to find, where that balance is. Does anyone want to say anything or add anything to that before I go on? So we've talked about, yeah, go ahead, please.
So I'm looking for the option to raise my hand. I don't know why I can't find it anymore. But I just want to say that the topic is sexual harassment in the workplace. So I don't know, maybe part of the answer is zeroing your mind to your environment. If you went out for concerts or meet and greets or a mixer or something like that, I think that is even the purpose of events like that. So you're meant to flirting and all those things. I don't know if you get, but the point I'm making in an office setting, if you put your mind that you are at work, I don't think you would spend as much time um, overly admiring. I don't know if that makes sense. But I think it's a mindset thing because definitely the person who is at the receiving end, most likely 90%, 99% of the time, the chance just came to do their work. So when it turns to something else, that's when it's wanted and so. So I don't know if maybe part of it is compartmentalizing your head so that even if you're a certain way normally, you know that when you're at work, you have to increase the boundaries that maybe normally you don't consider an issue when you're out and about in your own personal life or so.
I completely agree with you, because sometimes some people don't count whatever they do as harassment. That's just how they are normally. I don't know if any of us have experienced this before, or if you know anyone who just does not like to be touched when you are talking. And you know that there are people who, when they are talking, their communication is not complete until they touch you. They are either poking you or placing their hands on your shoulder or doing something. That is how they are. That is how they communicate. But yet somebody else will look at that gesture and just think that, no, this is harassment. So I like that point that you made, that even if that is how you are normally, you want to make sure that you are careful when you find yourself in an environment where there are laws and policies that govern those places, and you can't, finally, find where the thin line or the middle point is. Okay. Anyone wants to say anything before I continue?
Okay, sorry, maybe I should add
Sorry, let me also.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ayotunde.
Please hold on. Yes, Ayotunde, please go ahead.
Okay, I really don't completely agree with, okay, this is how this person is. Like, human beings, we are social beings, and in every place there are rules, and there is something that we call personal space. So even though if you are the person that is tactile in nature, when you're talking, you are, slapping the other person, touching the other person, it depends one on the relationship we have. You can't meet someone for the first time and you're talking with the person and you are touching and poking, and you can't go to the state house, for instance. If you are someone that talks and your emotions get the better of you and you start touching all of that, you can't go to the state house or probably go to let's say the royal family in UK, and you start speaking with the royal brand and say, okay, this is how I am, and you touch, you place that caution consciously on yourself. So the standard that you use to relate in that level, use it across board. Don't say because probably the power dynamics is different or anything, you can just, okay, be yourself. If there is no level of that personal relationship, and between you and the other person at the receiving end. So let's not just say, okay, this is how I am. Where your liberty ends is where another person's, or where your right stops is where another person's right begins. So let's not just fall back and say, okay, this is how I am and this is whatever. So there are basic etiquettes, like basic rules, basic things that are well appropriate or right. So let's just do it that way, because when you say how much is too much and all of that, even you, when you are looking at that person, you will know that, okay, when I'm looking too much or any other thing. And in all religious fears, the Muslim will say lower your gaze. In the Bible, if you look at someone and in your heart you're already thinking something, it's a sin. So it's not acceptable on either side of the divide. So let's not just fall back. This is how I am. If you have to do the same thing or be in the same space with someone that is maybe like socially higher than us, we won't, fall back and say, okay, this is how I am, and do what is not right with that other person. So that's what I want to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So a lot of times this element of this is how I am usually happens in familiar relationships. Although sometimes just this is me just trying to find a balance. Sometimes because that is how the person is, they do it outside of that bounds. This series on Netflix, no, not on Netflix. How many of us have read this book by Michelle Obama, her latest book, The Light We Carry? The Light We Carry. It's a good book. I read that book a few months ago. And in that book, Michelle Obama talked about a major issue that she had while they were in office. She had gone to England to visit the Queen. And while they were together, they were talking. And at first, of course, because, when you are visiting the Queen, they would have reeled out so many protocols. These are things you must do. These are things you must not do, and all of that. So she said, to the best of her ability, she stuck to everything that she said she should do. But that the Queen just, down to earth, made things very easy when they were communicating, until she got to the point where she just became really familiar. And she unconsciously went back to her usual self. Her usual self being that when she's talking, she's touching, when she's laughing, she's eating you and things like that. And in one of those times when she was doing this with the Queen, the camera captured it. And it was a big scandal. They said that she doesn't know how to relate with royalty. She wasn't well brought up. She was mannerless, and things like that. So I think a lot of times when we cross that boundary is where it is somebody that we have become familiar with, whether over time or momentarily. But like you rightly said, don't say that is how you are, so you have to keep putting yourself in check. To be honest, even though I advocate on human rights issues, I'm usually careful about how some of these things change the natural order of things. We human beings we are built to love. We are built to, and I'm not talking about sexual predators or people who like people that this one's lack manners. I'm not talking about those people. But just like as we had generally, but because of all of these rules and we human rights people that keep coming up with different human rights clauses and everything, it is shrinking us into boxes that I think is affecting the very fabric with which we have been made as a people. And sometimes it worries me. But I also know that sometimes if you don't put that stringent checks in place, there are people who take it for granted, So thank you for that, Ayotune, but those are my thoughts. Opeyemi, you wanted to say something. And if anyone wants to piggyback on what we just said, please go ahead. And then before we continue, over, Opeyemi, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to give an example of a familiar scenario. I think one or two people on this call would also be familiar with this particular incident. I have a friend we've known for years, way back. And even before I got married, I'm talking about more than 10, 15 years ago, about 15 years ago, thereabouts. So way back, since she knew me, anytime we meet, even before saying good morning or good afternoon, is hug straight. Even when I got married, it did not stop. She still hugged me, even in the presence of wife or family, any member. That's how we were very close. Fortunately, she now happens to work where I work. And the first few months, once she comes in like this, hey, Mr. Koyemi, even whether I'm enthusiastic about the greeting or not, she just, because that has been her way. Until and I now intentionally create that consciousness in her that we are in the workplace.
By the things that would build us up in the name of Jesus.
We are in a workplace, and fine. If you do that elsewhere, even if you do that in my house, nobody will raise make a noise about it or raise a hell about it. But because we are in a workplace, this is how we should greet. And over it took a while before she could adjust, but eventually she gets used to it. And I think even our moderator for this morning is familiar with and with the person in question, and she has adjusted in that regard. So I think consciously letting the other person know that in this environment this is not allowed or this is not permitted can help a long way in reshaping the person's mind and attitude. That's what I wanted to.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I can relate with that because I'm a hugger. I'm a hugger. My natural way of greeting people is to hug. But it has put me in trouble a few times. So I tend to now become quite conscious of that, especially when it comes to men. That's number one. And even when it comes to women, and it comes unconsciously, I just want to hug. But over time I started learning, do you hug me? I'm a hugger. And then some will say, oh, I'm a hugger. But some, even if they don't want to say no, from the way they hug you, you know you are not going to hug them again. Because there's that, consciousness. So yeah. Yes, any other person before I go on? Okay. So since we're also talking about sexual harassment in the workplace, I also want to talk about sexual harassment that comes in the nature of quid pro quo. Quid pro quo in terms of the fact that somebody is coerced or forced to submit to sexual acts or sexual advances as a condition for either getting a job, a contract, a promotion, entitled benefit in the workplace, or anything. So long as the sexual harassment or you're having to cope with being sexually harassed because you know that this person holds the key to something that you want in the workplace. So you can't complain, you can't talk about it. And I've experienced it before with one of my former bosses. My life and the life of my family at that time, my mom, my younger one, depended on that job. And so there were many things that the man would do, comments he would make, things he would do that I just couldn't. I couldn't be as hard. Of course, I would, when you shrug just to show that I'm not comfortable with this. But I couldn't go beyond that because it wasn't just about me. I had to consider the many lives that was, resting on the salary that was coming from that particular workplace. But was it Sun Tzu that said that every war has a turning point? So with this person, that just one day was the turning point. And when we also say the straw that broke the camel's back, it could just be a straw, something as light and as simple as a straw. So one day it was just something little, in fact, way, way less than the many things he has been doing. And I just said, you know what, I'm done. At that time, I just felt like every coping mechanism that God gave me, I had exhausted it at that time. So I had nothing left, so I just left the workplace at the time. So that's yet another way that sexual harassment happens. And sometimes it's not so overt, it's not so open, it's not so obvious. but you know that there are certain things this person is doing, whether they are doing it consciously or unconsciously, that they would normally not do, or you would normally not tolerate, if not for the favor that you need from them or something. But, in this regard, it is when sexual harassment, when you're having to be coerced or forced to submit to sexual acts, just because it is an unspoken condition. And sometimes some are daring enough to speak it out, it's an unspoken condition for getting a favor or anything that you want in the workplace. I hope that is clear enough. Does anyone want to ask anything about that or clarification or say anything about that before I go to the third type? Okay, so let me move on to...
Yes, sorry, Ms. Buki, I'm sorry.
Yes, right.
In a situation like that, can a co-worker, probably you work in an environment where maybe maybe a boss or a superior is harassing somebody for benefit, maybe a fellow, can the co-worker take that up? Wouldn't it be a detriment to the particular person, because probably or is like you said, family, sister, mother, brother depend on that work. If a co-worker, for instance, take it up and report to maybe, I don't know, the authorities or maybe a civil society organization, and they take it up and it affects the person's job. So I don't know, because I've been in such situation where I was not comfortable. I know the lady was being harassed due to her situation, but how can somebody in my situation help such a victim? Thank you.
Okay. So usually, whether you take it up and how you take it up is usually a function of the sexual harassment policy in the workplace. Is there a sexual harassment policy in that particular workplace that deals with something like that? That's where you want to go and check to see how you're supposed to, take it up within the workplace. Usually before an NGO comes in, which is an external party or a legal firm or something, it is usually advisable, and even in the court of law, it's usually advisable to have exhausted the cumulative, no, let me not use the word cumulative. You have exhausted every option you have within the workplace to be able to deal with that particular issue. So yes, you can take it up. Normally in sexual harassment policies, for those that we have helped organizations develop, we usually put the clause of a third party. So a third party can also report a sexual harassment case on behalf of somebody else. Especially when you can say reasonably that this person is not comfortable with it. So there is usually that clause of third-party reporting in sexual harassment cases, just to make sure that, this particular issue is dealt with. That is also much more important when you find out that the person that is being harassed does not have the capacity to be able to report that particular case. So yes, it can be taken up and it should be taken up, but within the confines of the sexual harassment policy. However, when there is no sexual harassment policy, it doesn't still invalidate the fact that it should be reported to the appropriate authorities, whether internal appropriate authorities or external appropriate authorities, for them to deal with it. Sometimes people don't come up with policies until a problem has happened, in which case, in order to avoid exigencies or to avoid making decisions that is fast, you then begin to what's it called? Come up with how to deal with something. But if you have your sexual harassment policy in place, it takes care of that. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other question?
Please,
Yes,
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, let me hold on.
Please go
okay,
ahead.
thank you. What should be done if it's not in a workplace, that is in a school where students discover that maybe a lecturer is trying to do such to a student? I have one that was reported to me, but I cautioned them to take it lightly so that they will not become victim. But along the line, when the person that one of the students believes that he wants to report to, uh, that person took it up and they look for another crime and pick the people that were aware of the matter. They have to rope them into another thing entirely so that the matter of the sexual harassment will go down. So in that case, in such environments, what do you think one should do?
Could you say that again? I missed a point there just to be able to get to the crux of it. Could you explain that again, please?
Okay. A student discovered that one of the lecturers is harassing a student or a classmate.
Yes.
Or a cosmate, and it's now getting deep into the lady. So in that case, the guys in the class the guys around asked the lady what is the problem, and the lady at last exposed what was going on. So the male students wanted to take it off, and unfortunately, one of them briefed one of the lecturer that this is what they observed, this is what is going on. The lecturer quickly notified others, and then they brought a case that's nothing to do with them. They brought them in for a case so that they can forget the one they are trying to bring up. So while those guys were dealing with the one they brought out for them, the one that concerned the harassment was dropped, and that was how the matter just went down. So what should one do in case you have knowledge? One of the students reported it to me, but I find it difficult to take action because it's a very far place to where I am.
What do we think? Let me throw it open. What do we think before I provide my
I really don't understand this scenario. The students reported to the lecturer, and the lecturer framed the students, or they framed the other lecturer.
The students that discovered that had information of what was going on thought they have somebody that they could relate the matter to among the other lecturers. So the one they related to took it up and briefed the other lecturers, and before you know it, within short time, they arranged a case against those guys that had information about what was going on.
The students, okay.
The thing just went down.
Interesting.
What do you think, Ayotunde?
Well, I think the sexual harassment case that was brought up against the lecturer, if they have enough proof, it's something they can still like bring up, and it's actually a naughty issue anyway, because the frame up that the lecturers framed them, do they have proof or evidence to actually like substantiate? Because even if you're going to like accuse anyone of any kind of misconduct, there has to be proof. Okay, this person did this person did this. Even if you're going to take it before a panel in the university or maybe in the polytechnic, so there has to be proof and all of that. So one, maybe what the students should try to do is to try to vindicate themselves from whatever it is that the lecturers did against them. And I hope that, well, they will be able to graduate and pass with good grades, even if they did do that. And then try to build up a case, against because the lecturer that is harassing that lady won't be doing it to her alone. So they should just leave the focus, like the girl that blew the top, leave her, look for another person that is a victim and that is willing, build up a case, against that lecturer and bring it up. I think there is like a law against that with lecturers this because like I led one of my old lecturers too, and I was actually doing it to some girls too as far back as maybe like 2003, 2000 and whatever when I was in school, and it was just was it dismissed from IFE like some 2-3 years ago based on the same thing. The lady actually went there with the phone, recorded all that we were supposed to be supervising the lady, and started saying some inappropriate things to her and all of that. The lady recorded it, took it to Senate, and the man that has been a lecturer for God knows what, he was shown the way out. And the funniest thing is that this person that the lecturer was harassing was actually studying law, so he knows. It's just the thing is that the students just try to like vindicate themselves for whatever the lecturers have put them into and try to build up a case with someone else. Take the focus off the girl and the guys that reported and look for another person that can help them build up the case before with the lecturer, and they can take it up. Because right now they have to like get themselves clean before they can actually try to help another person. That's what I think.
Thank you. Any other?
When the matter became much serious, the students were charged of something that was not clear, and they were taken to the Senate. According to them, they said they appear in Senate and they gave explanation. Within that period, all of them are in 400 level, so they could not even come back to the matter that even led them to the first accuse that was given to them. So how will one deal with this? And I want to say that the majority of students who are not, like you said, law students, who are not law students, might not know what exactly to do to get themselves as evidence to get out of such thing when it is coming up. And I'm sure most lecturers that do that don't do it. They do it in a way that the lady might not have any evidence against them.
Let me say that, and I think everything you have said borders on evidence. Evidence is usually a problem. Yes, Toby, please go ahead before I continue.
All right, I think there is a vacuum in knowledge here. The point here is the victim, I think they are not probably, there is a place of knowledge, as in people don't really understand how to go about issues like that. Like the person that just spoke recently, I think the case was alluding to, was a case of an issue that happened in Obafemi University. So before you can prove, you must have substantive evidence to show that this is what has actually transpired. In the absence of evidence, you do not have anything to show. And the background is that the knowledge of how to go about such issue must have been the base for which any victim will have operated for. How do you go about such issue when you have issue of harassment? There should be a constant awareness that will have prepared students or anyone, so that if peradventure such thing happen, that will not be. The university system is sometimes, especially among lecturers, they operate like a court group in court. So when they understand that someone is after them, especially a student that doesn't have the grant, so to say, they could organize, a counter, maybe something like counter attack, so that they will nullify anything that such a person is bringing on board. Especially the place where there is no proof. But if there are background information or proper knowledge or awareness about how such things should be handled, for instance, such information should not be transferring from one person to another, like let's say like 2 or 3 people. No, it should have been probably discussed maybe between just the victim and a more knowledgeable person. Then they can now scout for evidence. Then they are progressively, then they can now channel it to the right authority. But if there are no evidences or there are no proper background knowledge in that respect, it's not going to hold water. That's what I think.
Thank you, Toby. So again, is the issue of evidence. And I don't know if any of us, Wemiga, did you want to say something?
Yes, I agree with him that majority of the students or female students might not know how to get such because they don't have knowledge of what it takes to do it. Maybe like NGO and others should find means to educate students, maybe on radio, on other social media, how they should go about if such is coming up. And once male or male or the men are aware that such could be used against them, I think it will curb the issue of sexual harassment.
So you have highlighted the importance of sensitization, awareness, especially within the school system. And I must say that a lot of it is going on. Sensitization, awareness, all of that. A lot of it is going on. The problem we just keep having is being able to implement existing policies. Schools, tertiary institutions, they will tell you that they have policies, but by the time you now drill down to the reality of it, by the time you start trying to use those laws, then it becomes problematic, or those policies, it becomes problematic. Like someone rightly alluded to, these lecturers or teachers tend to protect themselves. Some on the basis of let's not give our school a bad name. Some on the basis of the fact that they themselves are perpetrators and they don't want to be caught, another time the same way this person was caught. So yes, thank you. Okay, so let me continue a bit. We've talked a lot around what sexual harassment is, the fact that it is unwanted, it is unwelcomed, it makes you feel humiliated, offended, intimidated. We've talked about the different ways it plays out, and the fact that there could be physical conduct, and we've talked about how those physical conduct can be unwelcome physical contact, like maybe when somebody pats you or pinches you or hugs you in a way that you are not comfortable with. It could also be when you are having to cope with such kind of physical conduct, physical sexual conduct, because it is in exchange for a favor within the workplace. It could be verbal as well, like we have said, comments, on a worker's appearance. Comment could also be on the person's age, on the person's private life. Could be sexual comments, it could be sexual jokes that you're not comfortable with. It could be sexual advances. We also talked about the fact that, such, and let's not forget, could also be somebody when you have a misunderstanding with somebody or something, and the person is insulting you on the basis of sex. And sometimes it could be jokes, and then they're using this kind of unwanted sexual words or actions towards you. We've also talked about such non-verbals, like, I didn't talk about this. There are also non-verbal forms of sexual violence that are conduct. For instance, if somebody keeps displaying sexually explicit or suggestive materials, it is sexual harassment. If you're not comfortable with it, or just imagine that you sit beside somebody at work and the person is always watching maybe pornography, or always watching, or just the person will bring his phone or her phone and the person is watching sexual stuff and is making you see it in one way or the other. You are being sexually harassed. It could also be sexually suggestive gestures. We've talked about it earlier. And when you go to places like the marketplace, and sometimes it happens in the workplace, and then you are passing and somebody is doing, that thing that market women also do it. So we've talked about that as well. We've also talked about how within the workplace, there should normally be a policy that should take care of sexual harassment within the workplace. We have laws in Nigeria that takes care of sexual violence. And under sexual violence is where we have sexual harassment, sexual assault, rape, and things like that. The main one we have, of course, is the Violence Against Persons Prohibitions Act of 2015, which is applicable in the FCT. However, states have also adopted it and they have made it into their own as well. And those states, for some states, unfortunately, when they were adopting it and trying to make it and try to adapt it to their own system, some of them have so watered it down that the version of these sexual harassment law that they have is at variance with the main sexual harassment, the main VAP law itself. I've been working on an analysis where we're looking at, where those problematic provisions are, those. So you go to a state like, and you go to a state like Kaduna State, even though they boast of having the the Violence Against Persons Prohibitions Act, but the law itself does not define rape. And then you wonder, what then is the law supposed to do if it is not defining rape, which is what the most novel part of the sexual harassment, of the Violence Against Persons Prohibitions Act that we have celebrated, the robustness of the definition of rape. So in law, we usually say that when you are adopting, or let me use domestication here, even though when it is happening nationally, like a national law, and states are adopting it, the word is adopting the law. But when we're bringing an international law, it is domestication. So with domestication, the condition is usually that even when you are reserving some provisions of the law, that you're saying, okay, this one, they don't apply to us, maybe because of our religious context or cultural context, or things like that. You must make sure that whatever you are reserving, reservation in law is whatever you are choosing not to be bound by. You must make sure that it does not affect the core of that particular law. It does not stop the mischief that particular law is supposed to address. Unfortunately, for our VAP version, by the time you start taking it to state, some states, I did analysis for all of the states. One state removed like up to 10 different provisions to say that they are not going to be bound by this. Some included more, surprisingly, in the VAP law. So I'm saying that because that's the main subnational legislation that we have that addresses issues around violence against persons. Constitutionally, which is our apex law, we have laws, that deals with the equal treatment of people. We have our Chapter 4 laws, rights on the fundamental rights of people, and all of that. But those are the ones we have. When you now go to other subnational entities, like Lagos State, for instance, Lagos State has their specific laws that deals with, let's say, domestic violence or different things. So we have laws. But when it comes to sexual harassment in the workplace, while laws are external laws, it is usually expected that the organization should also have its own internal policies. internal policies that takes care of sexual harassment in the workplace. So I wanted to ask you, are you aware or do you have sexual harassment policies in your workplaces? Has it been used before? Has it been tested before? What provisions does it have? Let me hear your thoughts. What do you know about sexual harassment that you have been part of? Are we here? Are we here?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone have experience with sexual harassment policy?
Well, I don't think we have that in my Abuja office, but maybe my office, Lagos office, might do. But I don't have knowledge of that.
Sexual harassment policy. Okay. ICIR, please let that be a major outcome of this session we're having today.
We actually have at the ICIR.
Okay, sorry, I apologize.
We actually have, but I was expecting my other colleagues, Ibukun, Fatima, to talk about it, and Nuruddin.
Yeah. So do I take it that these are journalists from different organizations?
Yes, they are from different media houses.
Okay, all right. So let's hear what you have in your media house. If you have one. Okay, so does that mean ICIR is the...
I think Fortunate said they also have.
Okay.
Maybe she can also shed light on.
Yes, I just want highlight of what it provides for, yes. Go ahead, please.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I can't tell the status of that in NTA. I think it's an eye opener. After this, I'm going to look that up, and if we don't have anything like that in the NTA, I am going to take it up.
Fantastic, and you can get help from ICIR to be able to come up with your own. There's nothing wrong with sharing your sample policies with others so that they can also adopt it within their own workplaces as well.
Exactly.
Peer sharing, so that at least let that be one of the major things that come out of this session we're having today, that every media firm represented here today should have a sexual harassment policy. Okay. Are we in agreement on this?
Yes.
Okay. ICIR, do you want to share and discuss, tell us about your sexual harassment policy? What are the things?
Yes, like Mr. Okwe said, I was waiting for my other colleagues to say something, but since they are, in ICIR, we are very committed to such things, and it's a very strict policy. The ICIR is particularly interested in this issue of sexual harassment, and I know the ED have repeatedly said it, even during meetings and conferences and training for the workers, for the staff, that they won't tolerate any form of sexual harassment or sexual inducement, either from either of the genders. It's not only, and I've listened to some of my colleagues say it several times, that about the gender equality about being balancing the gender issue. And I just want to, I might not remember the full details of the policy, but I'm aware and I'm fully aware that in the ICIR is a no-no. Once the sexual harassment is a serious issue, and the institution I work, which is the ICIR, is an example of adherence to strict policy on sexual harassment. And I believe that the NGOs and the civil society, even the government, should commend the ICIR for upholding such virtues. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, so I was hoping that we'll get some practical example, but I can share just some ideas on what you will usually find in a sexual harassment policy. So you usually find, some call it sexual harassment policy, some call it anti-sexual harassment policy. So you usually have the policy statement, and then you have the definition of sexual harassment. And under the definition, you will usually have the different types, i.e. physical, verbal, non-verbal, and then you provide context and examples of them, because the essence of your policy is so that there is no ambiguity. Nobody will come and say, oh, I didn't know this constitutes sexual harassment. And I will usually advise an omnibus clause, whereby you put a clause that takes care of anything you have not written there. And in the wisdom of maybe the committee, such kind of action or such kind of act is considered to be sexual harassment. So you have under the definition, you have the types, physical, verbal, non-verbal. Yes, I see that. And then you also then have the complaint procedure. The complaint procedure is how, when somebody is sexually harassed, what does the person do? How will the person go about it? So I don't have enough time, so I won't delve too much into that, but there's usually informal complaint mechanism where the person who has been sexually harassed wants to deal with the matter informally, in which case whoever is the designated person or designated leader over that particular person would then give opportunity for the alleged harasser to respond to the complaint and ensure that the harasser understands what the complaint is, and anything informal that needs to be done. And then you facilitate a discussion between both the parties to achieve an informal resolution of the issue. Then you ensure that there is confidential record of that particular incident. There's also then the formal complaint mechanism, where this person, whoever has experienced it, will report to the human resource manager, and the human resource manager or human resource officer will now conduct a formal investigation. Now, I'm not talking about police kind of formal investigation. I'm talking about internal office investigation, where the person will most likely come up with a committee, and then maybe 3 or 5 member committee to investigate the matter, which will usually entail things like interviewing the victim and the alleged harasser separately, then interviewing other third parties separately as well, people who may have been privy to either that incident or previous incidents that could be that could amount to sexual harassment. And then the committee or the person conducting the investigation will then decide whether or not that particular act has constituted sexual harassment. And then you then produce a report. Then there is a follow-up to ensure that the recommendations in the report are carried out. And then you make sure that you keep the record, you ensure the records are kept confidential as well. And then you ensure that the process is done as quickly as possible. Usually we advise that resolve such kind of complaint or such kind of process within 10 days. Where the report then provides recommendation or sanctions, it could be verbal or written warning to the person. It could be adverse performance evaluation for the person. It could be reduction in the person's wages. It could be transferring the person to another department where that person who had actually abused or the alleged person, so that the person is no longer feeling uncomfortable. Sometimes people are demoted, sometimes people are suspended, sometimes people are dismissed. So you want to make sure that there is appropriate sanction that meets the threshold of the offense that has been committed. And then you then monitor not just the implementation, but the impact of the implementation. First, does the alleged victim, does the person feel comfortable, or does the person feel that quote unquote justice has been served? You want to follow up on that. Even the process of anything, you want to keep checking with the person just to be sure that everything is fine. I'll just close my thoughts by giving an example of my daughter in school. My daughter plays basketball in school. And so was it basketball or netball? One of the balls, she plays different balls in the school. But I can't remember the ball that she was playing on this day that she was sexually harassed. The guy, she noted that the guy has always been looking at her hips, and my daughter studies in an environment where there is white and black children, but the guy is a white guy. And then we always look at my daughter in a very funny way, makes comment about the fact that blacks or Africans usually come with big bonbon, and things like that. And in particular, Nigerians. So my daughter started getting uncomfortable with it. Long story short, they had one of those balls that they were playing, and the guy used the bat or something to hit my daughter on the buttocks. She got home, told me about it. I sent an email to the school principal immediately. And the good thing about the country is there is a zero tolerance for sexual harassment. I got a response within 5 minutes. By the next day, the first thing they did was to remove the boy from the same class with my daughter. Then they went through the entire process, invited the boy's parents, all of those things. And over time, they separated them from all of the classes, with my daughter being given prior or more consideration. It was later, when they started seeing them play together again, and all of that, okay, they started now adjusting bit by bit. So I said all of that just to say that there are processes when you are handling. Summary, we've discussed what sexual harassment is. We've discussed the different ways it can play out. We've discussed also sexual harassment policy and what should go into it. But most importantly, we agree that every media firm here must make sure that as a fallout of this meeting, that you have a sexual harassment policy in place in your organization. Thank you very much for having me. If you have any question, please let me know. I'm here. I know that there's still 12 minutes to the end, so I'm giving this time for questions, but in the absence of none, that will be all from my hand. Over to you, ICIR. Thank you. Thank you all.
Yeah.
Important for being active and participating. I don't take that for granted. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. We really appreciate, and this has been a very enlightening class. Is there any question? Okay, because most of the questions was dealt with as okay. Bankole, please go ahead, and please, we're trying to round up. Go ahead. Bankole, please go ahead with your question.
Yes, I'll be fast. I just want to ask. Hello, can you hear me? Please, a call came. Sorry, I wanted to ask that what's the place of evidence? How easy is it to gather evidence in an office office space? And I don't know, in an office space, I don't know how easy do you think one can gather evidence? Because most cases I see, when you tap somebody, when you hit somebody, or you comment somebody, sexual appearance. How do you prove that in maybe when a committee is set up to prove someone or in a court of law? Thank you.
So sometimes for offices that have CCTV, it may be easy for you to be able to prove evidence. Sometimes it could happen in the presence of a third party, or somebody may just catch a glimpse of when that is being happening. When that is happening, evidence is easy in that case. However, when there is absence of that, it then becomes verbal evidence, which a lot of times doesn't work in favor of the survivors. I consult as the gender consultant for an NGO in Nigeria, and I recall that we had such case in one of their international offices, and unfortunately, even though there were chats between both of them, but we just couldn't find any evidence to show. Unfortunately, the person did not get the kind of justice that the person wanted. Yeah. So getting evidence. I know of one particular case that I handled where the person actually, just for the person to be able to have evidence, set up cameras, did certain things, because after it happened the first time, she felt that she would not be able to prove it without evidence. So she planned herself very well until she was able to get enough evidence for justice. Yeah. Over.
Okay,
May God deliver us.
Jesus' name, amen.
May God deliver you. Are you planning on harassing somebody? You have nothing to fear.
It goes both ways. No, not actually, but it actually goes both ways.
Yeah, exactly.
What you don't foresee, you don't expect that. You think maybe after the first move, she has actually gelled into you, and things may just go on as you are made to believe, not knowing that it's actually a setup. That's by the way. I just want to ask briefly. I
act very fast. We are running out of time.
Yes. I have a daughter who is almost in her teen year, and sometimes I do bath them or bath her, but and at a point of recent, he will say, "Daddy, don't bath me. I want to bath myself." Sometimes when she do something wrongly, instead of getting my belt or using stick or anything, I just carry my bare hand. You this pikin, you know, go kill me. I no kill my papa. And it's her in her buttocks. And I noticed a kind of behavior in her of recent that she actually is now started to see it as, yeah, Dad, don't touch my bum bum. Even despite it's actually a punishment. And so I want to ask, so that as fathers too, we should also be more cautious about how we, even despite the fact that it is actually non-sexual, the motive was to punish her for whatever, but she is actually raising objection to it. Could that also be labeled as harassment? And when should one stop doing that, even for your own daughters, for your own girls?
Okay, so I'm going to
stop it right away.
I'm going to push the question back to you based on what we have learned today in today's session. What in the way your daughter has responded to it, what is the element in it that makes it sexual harassment? We discussed it when we were defining sexual harassment. What's the element?
I think it's
Once they say no.
Is what?
Okay. About this no is forbidden. No. The intention of me eating her buttock is to punish her for a wrongdoing, not
She's uncomfortable with it.
We
but
agree.
she's
But
uncomfortable with
you used to beat her, but recently she's now started showing that she doesn't want you to beat her on her buttocks, right?
Yes, exactly.
So that brings in the element of unwantedness. So if you want to discipline her or beat her, even though I will not advocate for this, please cut this part out of the record. If you want to punish her, just make sure it is not in a place that she has expressly expressed non-consent to. Because the danger of it is that once she expresses that she doesn't want it or she doesn't like it, and you keep doing it, you are giving her the permission, you are giving other people the permission to disrespect her consent, and she will just succumb to it. So the unwantedness is the element in our definition that makes this harassment of a sexual nature. So we process that in your head. We're not saying that you're sexually harassing your daughter, but because it is in a sexual private part of her body and she has expressed unwantedness to it.
Okay, well noted. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Yes.
I hope you know that in most schools, children are being given as a teaching that they tell them not to allow anybody to touch certain part of their body, which is also part of the why the children are against such, even if it's their father.
Okay. Thank you, Bemiga Olamikan. Sorry, I don't know if I pronounced that very well. So thank you, everyone. It's been a wonderful conversation. Yeah, thank you very much. Then it's been a wonderful conversation, and if we go on, I'm very sure there will be so many more questions, and we're already almost running out of our time already. So thank you once again, Ms. Buki Shonibari. It's been an enlightening conversation. And thank you for taking our time despite not feeling very fine and not feeling very strong, but you still are here. And I've been informed that this is the last masterclass for this year. So we're going to make announcement for when the next one is going to start. Please follow the ICIR on social media at the ICIR where the announcement will be made. And on behalf of the ICIR, I want to say thank you to everybody and say thank you to our facilitator, those who are being part of the masterclass from beginning and those who just joined. Do have a wonderful day ahead and happy holidays in advance.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Aisha. I'm out.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.